The Department of Labour is today hosting the annual 4th CCMA Labour Conference. Minister of Employment and Labour, Thulas Nxesi, is set to deliver an address on the importance of dispute resolution institutions and effective legislation. For more on this, we cross to SABC Economics reporter Katlego Legodi, who is at the conference for us. Very good afternoon, Katlego. This is, of course, a very interesting topic at a time that when many in the labour movement are seeking to get higher wages in an environment where we have inflation at over 7.5%.
Most definitely, Nompu, it's been a day, or day one, really, of marathon talks here on the ground, just to address some of those issues that you've mentioned there, where labour unions and the workers on the ground have really not been happy about what has been happening. Most of them just moving to try by all means to negotiate at the bargaining council for an increase of some sort. We also know very well that the unions at the public sector, or in the public sector, have gotten a certificate of strike, and now they are currently balloting their members to see if indeed they can down tools. But this is something that they're discussing here as well. Just a moment ago, we saw Labour and Employment Minister Thulas Nxesi addressing delegates that have gathered here, just saying it's important, this document called the Labour Relations Act. It's been 25 years, Nompu, and they are reflecting on it, the gaps within the Labour Relations Act, and most of them just trying to craft solutions that will in any way benefit the workers on the ground, because they're saying that in the 25 years, the workers have really been the ones that have been in the receiving end of just a harsh economy and just unfair practices by the employer.
So, Katlego, what are we expecting the minister to outline, and has he spoken or is he yet to speak?
The minister spoke just a moment ago, just outlining the importance of strengthening the Labour Relations Act, saying that also there's a need to just bridge the gap that exists between labour unions and the employees that they represent. Also saying that there have been unfair labour practices that have been brought to the fore by the employers on the ground, saying that the employers go to a point of just exploiting the workers. He touched on the issue of illegal migrants that are still exploited in some of the sectors on the ground, saying that that is something that they are working on as a government to try and strengthen the Labour Relations Act so that it doesn't give room for employers to really exploit, saying that they've got inspectors on the ground as well that move from company to company and just assessing the state of relations in terms of the works that have been going on the ground, saying that as well one of the things that need to happen here would be the transformation of the Labour Court, saying that the Labour Appeals Court and the challenges that have been presented there, mostly about the delays that it takes to resolve a case where there's a dispute between the employee and the employer. You can imagine that these are the cases that get to be referred to the Labour Appeals Court or the Labour Court by the CCMA, and the CCMA are saying that they do their part amid challenges that they have on the ground as well, and then they move the cases, and most of the cases are in favour of the employees, but then the stumbling block is at the Labour Appeals Court. This is where we see delays. This is where we're seeing the employer that has more money just basically digging deeper into their pockets to try and protect themselves, at the expense of the worker. And the CCMA saying this is something that needs to really be looked into. The minister making a commitment as well to say that they're going to ensure that this act is transformed and this act is felt on the ground, and just saying indeed that there's an opportunity here to reflect on the past 25 years, because things have not been easy for workers on the ground, and there are institutions like the CCMA that are best positioned to answer and respond to the disputes that arise between the employees and the employer. But him saying that what's important, Nompu, is to ensure that jobs are safeguarded, because it doesn't make sense that a case would be referred to the CCMA and then that case is then resolved there and moved, then we'll see an employer coming through to appeal that process, where the case now moves to the Labour Appeals Court, and there's a lack of judges, there are lack of lawyers on the ground, and him saying as well that the lawyers that tend to represent the employees on the ground also need to be held accountable, because they're saying that there's a responsibility that they have here most of them just drag the cases. The paperwork is not in on time, and the court will be forced to postpone the matter over and over again because the lawyer is getting money for the case that is being on the roll for so long. But those are the issues that they're going to be addressing in these 2 days. We're also expecting later on in the afternoon the Chief Justice, that is Raymond Zondo, to give a keynote address here. You can imagine that he was the first, one of the pioneers of the CCMA, and it's an opportune moment for him to come here and address those that are gathered here, the economists that are gathered here, the labor officials that are gathered here, and also the people from the legal fraternity that are gathered here. We have people from as far as outside of South Africa that have come here to take part in this process. The International Labour Organization also, we're expecting that it will be taken to the podium to address those that have gathered here. But today, only marking day one, and a lot of ground has been covered, and they're looking forward to day two as they push to ensure that there's transformation on the end. I'm going to bring in my guest. He's here, and he's the Judge President of the Labour Appeals Court. He just gave an indication or an address here earlier on about what needs to be done where the courts are concerned. I'm just going to go to him and welcome him in terms of what needs to be done here. And yeah, he'll just let us in on his role here. So thank you very much for joining us. We have a tight one. Just let us in on the importance really of the Labour Appeals Court and the need for transformation. There are issues of cases that are delayed, and you mentioned them right here, the disconnect between the Labour and also the lawyers that seem to more or less be complicit in exploiting and dragging the cases. Let us in on the importance really of reflecting on the 25 years of the Labour Act.
Yeah, no, what I did say is that the objective when the new act was drafted was that we should have quick, efficient processes, and it was expected that every matter referred to the court will be finalized within at least 12 months. Well, things haven't gone according to plan because, first of all, I don't think it was anticipated that we would have as many matters as we have. I mean, we average over 6,000-7,000 cases a year, and we have 12 judges to deal with all that, and it's impossible. So that is the first difficulty, but the more important issue is that we find that too many matters come to the Labour Court which shouldn't be coming. There are too many matters which are either without any merit or there is just no basis for it to come to court. But people do that, and they come to court because there is no disincentive, you see, because there are no cost orders really made in the Labour Court. So people come, bring a matter which goes through the process from the CCMA right up to the Constitutional Court, in matters which shouldn't have happened in the first place. So these things create a major backlog. And added to that, we have three problems. One, the lawyers themselves, who seem to want to run with the matters. Their rules were very clear. Things should happen within the time frame. But what happens when both sides are represented by lawyers? They make arrangements that they can file things late and so on. So this delays process. So when people complain that our matters are taking too long, it's not just the court's fault. Yes, we have a problem because we are insufficient in numbers, but also the lawyers themselves. They take sometimes over a year to complete the paperwork, which should have been done within a month or two, maybe 3 months, Yeah. And those are issues which create the problem that we have at the moment.
Judge President, thank you very much for your time there. The Judge President of the Labour Appeals Court and the Labour Court just giving us a little bit of his time in terms of what he presented there. But it's going to be an interesting day as we're expecting that the Chief Justice would be giving a keynote address later on. Nompu?
Katlego, thank you very much for that report. Katlego Legodi reporting there for us.